Mediabyte Podcast Network.
Jason, Mother is talking to you.
I want to play a game.
Don't fall asleep.
Just been informed that zombies have entered the building.
You opened it. We came.
The unburied dead are coming back to life.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Slash It podcast. I love doing the Slash It podcast. This is one of my favorite things and I'm so glad that I brought it back. So today we are doing the third installment of Final Destination 3, which hopefully you were able to tell by the title of this podcast. I actually saw I don't know if I mentioned this in the second podcast episode we did, but I actually watched Final Destination Bloodlines in 4DX, which was a crazy experience. If it's playing in any 4DX theaters near you, I would definitely make sure that you go check those out because that would be pretty fun. It was really fun, and I think you would have fun too. Just don't get popcorn or soda or any of that. Eat before and drink after, because that's a crazy movie and it moves you around a lot. If you don't know what 4DX is, it's movable chairs. Like they move to what the film, what's happening in the movie. So that's kind of how that really ends up actually going. So if you are interested, I'm just going to kind of throw this out before we do anything, before we jump into anything. Go subscribe to Mediabyte Productions. It's a production company YouTube channel. It's all my short films, all my trailers, all that stuff. We're going to try this out for a little while, and then we'll see what it happens. If it doesn't work out as I would like it to, it'll probably end up being both on Mediabyte Productions channel as well as the main Mediabyte channel. Just make sure you all can see it. So it's Mediabyte Productions. I would really appreciate that if you could go subscribe, go watch all the short films there. We're doing a bunch of short films and all that fun stuff. We are going to be doing a Patreon account for just Mediabyte as a whole. $5 is what I plan. Commentaries, but I'm trying to figure out how to do commentaries correctly and all that fun stuff. So let's just jump into the podcast after like 3 minutes of discussion. So, take yourself back to 2006. Where were you? How old are you? What were you doing in 2006? I was 3 years old. I was actually 2 years old when the movie came out, but we'll get there in a second. So writer-director James Morgan came back for this film. He was the writer-director of the original film, with producer-writer Glenn Morgan. Same with Devon Sawa, even though, he actually didn't end up coming back. This film premiered February 2nd, 2006 at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles and widely released on February 10th, 2006. My birthday was 2 days and 1 month away from this date. So, yay. This film came out about 3 years after the Final Destination, the second one, and, I think, so I don't like the second Final Destination movie all that much. Go listen to the podcast. I talked about that for a while. I don't like it very much. I don't think it does a very incredible job at what it was trying to do. But I think it's a decent horror movie. It's a fine movie. I don't like talking crap too badly about movies because I think too many people, they made a freaking movie and I didn't do that. So that's kind of how I view that whole thing. I didn't do it. They did. But, so, more power to them because it's really hard to do. And not a lot of people realize how hard making a movie actually is. But I think the time gap between the two films actually really, really helped come up with some interesting, ideas for this sequel. It's so much different than the other films are, which, I don't know, it's really cool. I am very, 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 very big fan of the way that this film, happens. So, with the budget of I'm going to say that again. With the budget of $25 million, it made a total of $118.9 million with a total profit of $93.9 million, which is more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. Remember, Final Destination 2's profit was $64 million, so, that's not counting marketing or any of that stuff, so what they actually spend on the movie, but overall, $93.9 million is a lot of money. It's a bigger profit than what Final Destination 2 was, so, that's good, but, well, again, marketing is kind of hard to tell. Usually it's like 15 to 20 million, so, take down $20 million off both profits, and that's probably closer to what it is. But then you gotta, you add in everything else that you have to add into for movies, paying everybody and all that back ends and all that stuff and all that fun jazz. So who knows what the film actually totally made, but yeah. So it's not really 100% accurate to what it made, but it's pretty as close as we could get. So let's look at the cast. So let's look at the cast of the film, which is a very, very big cast, but I have the two main characters here for you, and their kind of importance to horror and movies in general. So Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Wendy Christensen. She's like the main character in the film. She is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World as Ramona, but she is not Michael Cera. She is Ramona, so don't get those two confused. She was also in Sky High, if you guys have ever seen that Disney film. I like Sky High a lot, but, I do like Sky High. We're not talking about Sky High. I'll do a Sky High podcast if you guys want me to, but, movie about superheroes. It's an MCU film before the MCU. But 10 Cloverfield Lane, she's also in that, which sometimes I wish that film kept the surprise that it was tied to the Cloverfield universe, but that is what it is. She was also in the remake of Black Christmas, the 2000s, I think it was the same year, it was 2006, I think. 2004? 2006? Somewhere around there. I think it's 2006. But, yeah, I dislike parts of Black Christmas. I don't like all the flashback weird backstories they give, but I'd probably still put up, Sky High higher up on the list. But Ryan Meerman is Kevin Fisher. He's known as Deckard. He's half of the Pulp Fiction crew from Halloween Resurrection, who just watches the live streams the entire time. That's his biggest thing. He's done a bunch of TV movies, a bunch of TV episodes and things like that since then, but these are kind of the two main characters that you follow throughout the whole film. So I first saw Final Destination 3. I knew that this was the one, which you'll see in a second as we really jump into this, but I knew this was the one where the roller coaster was the opening premonition for the film. So I made sure that I watched this for the first time directly before going to a theme park, because there is something really scary about the opening scene to the film before going on a roller coaster, which if you can all do that without, being too paranoid, I think about this movie a lot when I'm going. I actually just went to an amusement park like 2 days ago, and it is one of those things that I think about every time before I'm getting on a roller coaster. I think about the film, and I'm like, okay, well, this just makes this a lot scarier, and it's very, very funny to me. But first, the opening scene. From what I just said a moment ago, but Wendy, our main character, has a premonition of a roller coaster disaster. Then, at this point, slightly cliche, there's a freak out scene. She leaves the roller coaster, and then immediately she's accurate. Her premonition is accurate. They kind of skip past the whole finding out about Death's List thing that gets pretty annoying at a certain point. Which, I really don't like that whole thing. I think there's something really important that you don't do that every 10 seconds, because it can be really, really annoying in every film if every character learns about Death's List. Like, it takes them the whole film. If it takes you the whole film to get to Death's List, I think that's a big, big problem. Because I think Death's List is something by the second film everybody knows about, and I think you just need to jump through that a little bit, or have a really clear way for everyone to just immediately get it. So, throughout the opening of the film, they're consistently taking photos of everything. So just everything that happens in the first film. So the thing that kind of separates this film from the other two films in the franchise is throughout the film, they use clues from the photos that they took to how the people are supposed to die, which makes this film a very separate feeling from the rest of the films in the franchise. I wish that we would keep doing things like this about how death is actually using different ways to tell you the people how they're going to die, and you just don't know it until it's too late. Or our main character figures things out slowly but surely, I guess. The only thing that unfortunately film, has that kind of is not great is there's not a lot of fun characters, especially in like the dialogue. You really don't care about most of the side characters, and they make a lot of them very, very mean, and so you don't really care a lot about all the people that are dying very much, which really runs into the horror tropes of that kind of whole idea. So one thing I think is kind of interesting to talk about here is loss of control is a major theme throughout this entire film. Wendy's very, very, afraid of losing control throughout the whole film. She's very, very much like, okay, we gotta do this and we won't die. If we don't do this, we won't die. This kind of thing, right? So that's kind of part of what the roller coaster is about, right? Because, so he actually was really kind of cool. Not a lot of people do this all the time, is he talked the James Wong, which I think I said the name wrong up at the beginning, and that's my fault. It's James Wong, not James Morgan. It's James Wong. He actually envisioned the film as being about a loss of control from the very, very beginning of the, writing it. But he talked to psychologists, and he confirmed that people are afraid of roller coasters so bad because they don't have any control over it, and like everything that it does and what it means. Being on a roller coaster, you don't have any control of what happens to you, what happens to the roller coaster, anything. People you love, all that stuff. So that's why the roller coaster is the opening premonition for Wendy, and it's why she's so scared of the roller coaster besides just her own premonition. And it's kind of partially why she thinks that she doesn't understand the premonition 100%. So here's just some of the kills that happen. It's not every kill, because there are some other kills that happened. A lot of them just happen very quickly or whatever else. But here's just like the main characters' deaths that happen. Main side characters, I guess I should say. Ashley and Ashlyn are both burned to death in a tanning bed, which is one of the most harrowing film deaths in this entire franchise, in my opinion. It is really freaking intense. The next death is, I just gotta mention his full name because it's absolutely hilarious to me, Frankie Cheeks, which is an incredible name. His back of his head was chopped up by like a car engine fan. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You'll know what I'm talking about when you watch that, because that is one of the most insane things. One of the most graphic, random scenes that so quickly happen in these films. Lewis has his head crushed between two gym weights because he's being a little bit of a sarcastic, and he doesn't believe that Death's List is a real thing, and it actually is, and that is partially, it's somebody's fault, but it is his fault because he didn't believe in Death's List, and that was it. Perry is impaled through her back with a flying flagpole towards the end of the film. And then Ian is crushed in half by a cherry picker thing. I don't know. It's a cherry picker. I don't know what that is. But it's pretty crazy. Here is one of the most insane parts of any Final Destination film in my book. 5 months after... This is the ending of the film. So 5 months after, actually wait, let me count up. There are 7 main side characters that are killed, but there are more people that die towards the end of the film, but I just don't want to spoil that, and that's what we're about to talk about. But everything about this film is a little bit of a spoiler. I guess if you've gotten this far, you've had things spoiled for you and you're not too stressed out about that. But let's take a step back before we get to the ending for a second. The mood in this film is very much focused highly on the camera shots that happen throughout the film, right? Like the pictures and things like that happen throughout the movie are very, very important to like the overall plot of the film. And it's one of those things where like it's like all it's digital photos. It's like, an old early 2000s digital photo camera, right? Before everyone had phones in their pockets, it's a phone camera. Not a phone camera, a digital camera that's separate, like you would keep in your purse or in a bag or something with you, right? And something I think is really interesting is it's a very like early kind of adaptation of digital cameras and like how it really works and all that fun stuff. It's one of those really, really early adaptations of film cameras, which I think is pretty cool. So I like that part about it. There's also some really, really intriguing stuff with Wendy and her sister. It's really cool. There's some really cool stuff that happens with her and her sister, and some sad stuff that happens with her and her sister, but it's all worth being, aware of and watching out for, because I think it's pretty good, and I think most people could relate to a lot of it in some way or the other, but I won't spoil that too much for you, because there is a lot of stuff in there that I think is worth, not being spoiled for you, I guess I should say. So if you guys don't know anything about the film, it came out. This film is kind of different in there is a main villain throughout the entire film, which I believe his name is Ian. He's a bad guy throughout the end of the film, and it's honestly one of those things that it's so different than the rest of the Final Destination films, because there's not a human villain throughout the films. Almost like Death is using him to get his way, almost like as if Death was using a human being to solve its own list and give them a reason to have these issues with Wendy, the main character. The whole ending has to do kind of with him towards the end. Not the very, very end, but like the first ending, I guess. And I think there's something really kind of interesting about that. So I don't think I really mentioned it, at least I have not mentioned this yet. This film was never intended to be a sequel, as in a direct follow-up to the events of Final Destinations 1 and 2. It was actually meant to be a kind of like a spiritual sequel to both those films. Like, it takes the ideas and continues on. And they were going to do a new trilogy, kind of. I think they originally intended to do it with Wendy, but then they decided not to, which, that's fine. However, I think I wish that there was a kind of more through line in a lot of the films, because I think it's something that's really missing from a lot of Final Destination films, are that secret kind of ending, the extra little ending that doesn't happen through a lot of these films. So it's just something I think is kind of missing from all Final Destination films, is a very clear through line other than just death and Death's List. But, it works for them. I just wish that there was more of a through line, at least through like a few of the films, right? Like, I wish 2 and 3 had the same characters. Like, 1 and 2 has the same characters, so I wish 2, 3, and 4 would have the same characters, but they don't. And I wish 4 and 5 would have the same characters, but they don't. And, that's fine. It's something I really desperately wish about these films, is there was a more clear through line, rather than just Easter eggs about, the first one, which it's always about the first one. It's almost never about any of the sequels, which, if everything happened in the same timeline, there should be a lot more discussion about things that happen in these other films. Let's just start talking about the ending. So, 5 months after the original, kind of what makes you feel like the ending, we're not going to talk about that, but there's a horse involved in a carnival. because of the amusement park, the carnival, okay, not just together. You know what it is. 5 months after that, Wendy experiences more omens while riding on a subway train with Laura, her roommate, and a friend, Sean. Wendy's about to get on the train, and then suddenly, Julie and Kevin are there, which, if you forget, Julie is her sister, and Kevin is like the main secondary character of the whole films. They also boarded the same train randomly, right? And that's gonna make you go, oh Lord, it's a Final Destination film. Oh my God, what's about to happen? Very, very suddenly, Wendy has another premonition that the train that they're all about to ride is about to crash. They try to get off, of course, because you're freaking terrified of what you're looking at, what you just saw in your eyes. She tries to get off, but the doors have already shut. Kevin kind of looks at her for a second. He's like, what? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? She's not okay. Not okay at all. The survivors that have survived up to this point in the film, we're really about like an hour and 25 minutes in at this point. All the survivors, there's just like 3 survivors of the whole film, the main plot, main characters in the film. They all attempt to try to stop the train. They try to get the conductor and try to stop the trains in one way or the other, but it's a subway train. There's nowhere for them to go. They're under the ground. There's nothing to stop them. It's just kind of how it works. And then as they all start freaking out, it's cuts, because it is a premonition, so you already kind of saw a lot of the stuff that already is about to happen. They try to stop the train, and it cuts to black, and then boom, you hear a bunch of like train crashing noises and stuff, and then hell happens, very, very suddenly and very quickly, and it's all off screen. At least, but when it actually happens, it's off screen. It's just a black screen and a bunch of subway train, people screaming, subway train crashing, and all that fun stuff. So here, if you're new here, hello, how are you? This is the Slasher Podcast. I appreciate you very, very deeply. All these will get better and better. Don't you worry about that. I'm still, oiling the rust off my joints and getting back into it. But so here we do the overall rating out of 7. There's a total of 7. 1 to 3 is on the bad end. 4 is straight down the middle. 5, 6, and 7. Anything 4 all the way up to 7, I would watch it. Basically, is what it means, right? 4 is straight down the middle. 5, 6, 7 is good in that order, right? So based on that rating, I'd probably give this anywhere between a 4 to a 5. It's worth watching, 100%. We're not on the point where I would say you can skip this one if you wanted to, which there's only one film in this entire franchise that I'd say if you like the first one, this one's not 100% worth watching, and I believe that comes up very, very soon, actually, but I'll leave that as a surprise. I don't like this film that I'm talking about in secret very, very much, but it is okay. Again, they made a movie, and that's more than I've done, so I won't fault them too much. I thought I'd give it about a 4 to a 5, if that's, so watch it. Especially if you're doing the franchise run, do watch this. It's so different than any of the other Final Destination films, which again is why I like Final Destination Bloodlines as much as I did. Whole kind of new take on a very familiar topic, which is not something that most films do anymore. So it's worth watching, trust me. This film is worth watching. Final Destination Bloodlines is worth watching, and all that fun stuff. So that's basically the end of this episode of the Slasher Podcast. Do you guys have any ideas for what you would want the next franchise to be? I have some ideas for what I would want the next franchise to be, but I want to see if you guys have any ideas. It's Media Podcast Network at gmail.com. You can send all those emails to that email address if you're enjoying this podcast. If there's any other kind of clues for what you guys want, any more. If you guys want me to make this podcast longer, talk for longer, speak longer on these films, I can absolutely 100% do that. I try to cut down sometimes my little rambles that I have, but I love talking about horror movies, and I can go on and 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 then some more ons at the end of that. So I love talking about horror movies. I always have. I love talking about film, just in general. So that's why I have other podcasts. Exploring Cinema, we have some podcasts there. The Media Byte Podcast Network, or Media Byte Podcast, we talk about all kinds of podcasts, all types of film and media and different types of things there. Exploring Cinema is a lot of fun for me to do. Media Byte Podcast is a lot of fun for me to do. And I love doing Slasher Podcast. I also have a podcast more about art, more about the filmmaking art side of things and my own journey as a filmmaker. It's Diary of an Indie Filmmaker. You can go check those out. A lot of people seem to like those. It's very raw. I don't really edit anything. It's very just a stream of consciousness talking about art and film and all that kind of fun stuff. So if that's if you enjoy that, I can do those more often as well. I do those kind of whenever I feel, but I have a lot of thoughts about things, but I usually do it whenever I feel I need to have a discussion about art and the way that I feel about it, and keeping up, kind of when there's news about my films and stuff. But I could always do it more often, even if I don't have film, and just talk about whatever it is about my filmmaking journey that I want to talk about. So I can always do that. But yes, so that's that. Follow all the stuff on the Media Byte podcast, or the Media Byte channel. That is where all the videos, this video will be. That's where all my films, all my videos were going to be, which I do twice a week. All the production, all the short films, all the trailers, all that stuff is on Media Byte Productions. You can find that. That's linked in the Media Byte channel. You can also just type up at Media Byte Productions in the YouTube bar, and you'll find that there as well. So that is it. Follow me, my Instagram, Jared Poynter, JaredPoyner, 2 R's, because somebody took Jared Poynter and Instagram won't let me have it. So that's fine. Not really. I want the main one. I also want the at Media Byte, but I can't get that either. So who knows? That's how it is. If I ever pull any connections, pull some connections for me, and I'll do your favorite horror movie on the podcast or something else. We'll figure that out. But yes, so thank you all for listening, watching, all that stuff. Wherever you're doing that, make sure you follow the podcast. Listen to all the other podcasts that I've done on this podcast, the Slasher Podcast, and all the other podcasts that I do, and all that fun stuff. So leave any franchise ideas, any comments, anything on at Media Byte Podcast Network, or Media Byte Podcast Network at gmail.com, and just whatever else you'd want to send there. So thank you. And as we have said on the Slash It channel, which I guess most of you might not even know this was a channel that I used to do, but it's now just the podcast. I said this in every end of every single one of those videos, and so I've decided to continue that into the podcast. So I'll say it again, and it will not be the last. Treat every day like it's Halloween.
Media Byte Podcast Network.